Welcome to the Maths Master Cluster. Today we are doing Mathematical Literacy Grade 12. We're looking at personal income tax, which it is a type of tax which is paid by an individual based on the income they receive. And then it's calculated based on the tax brackets which is given on your left, right? So now let's look at the question paper which was written in KZN in 2026 March. We have Mr. Mitchell, who is 45 years, and then he earns a salary of 22,500 per month. He contributes 7.5% of his salary on to a pension fund, and then Mr. Mitchell belongs to a private medical aid scheme, and it pays a medical aid of his for his family of 4. And then find the annexure of 20 of the income tax rates 2024-2025, right? So here is an income tax bracket rates with the bracket and the income tax. Now, based on the annexure, explain the term medical aid credit. So a medical aid credit, it is a type of a rebate given for a medical aid contribution. So this amount of a credit, it is given based on the amount of money that you pay on your medical aid, and it heavily relies on individuals that are on that medical aid. So now, the more you pay the medical aid, or the more you have dependents or participants on your medical aid, then the lower your tax will be, because this medical aid credit, it reduces the tax. It is a tax relief. That's why we're saying it is a tax rebate given for a medical aid contribution that reduces tax payable. It reduces the tax which an individual must pay, but it heavily relies on what? It heavily relies on on your contribution towards your medical aid. So let's write it down. It is a tax rebate, or you can use the word discount, tax rebate given for a medical aid, contribution that reduce your tax payable. Your tax payable to government or to SARS. Can use SARS. Tax payable to government or SARS. So that is what we call a medical aid credit. So the more you contribute, the more you pay medical aid, or the more you have dependent on your medical aid, and then that will also affect your tax payable, the amount of money which you must you must pay to SARS in the form of tax or the government. Okay, so let's look at 4.1.2. Now they say to you, show how the amount of 77,362 was calculated from the tax bracket. So now we want to know how this 77,362 was calculated. Let's see how it was calculated. First, let's look at how this 42,678 was calculated. How was it calculated? Let's take a look at it. So now we have in this bracket, we have 0 to 237,000. That is the first bracket. We have an amount of 237,100, and then you multiply it by 18%. You multiply it by 18%. Then you're going to get, let's see, multiply by 18%. Then you have 237,100. You multiply by 18%, and then you're going to get 42,678. So this is how the second tax bracket was calculated, and then that will be plus 26%. That will be plus 26% of the tax income above 237. So that was how that 42,600 was calculated. Now we want to know how this amount of money was calculated. Now we're answering the question. Let's take a look. We're now answering the question. Okay. We're now answering this question. So now to answer that question, you say 42,678 plus 26%, and then you go back to your bracket. 26% of what? Remember, we took 23700. Now we're going to take let me highlight it for you. We're going to take 370,500, and now it means we're going to have 370,500, and then we subtract the first bracket, or the above. We subtract 237. Then we're going to have 237,700. Then you close your bracket. Okay, so now we still have 42678 plus 26%. Then you open your bracket again. Then you work that on your calculator. Let's see what we're going to get. Right? Then you have 370,500 subtract 237,100. Then that gives us 13, an amount of this money in rands, 133,400. Okay, so now we're going to work that on a calculator. Then let's see what we're going to get. So we're going to have 42,678 plus, then we press 26% of that. Then we'll have 26% multiply by 133,400. 133,400. That should be 26%, not 26. Then we'll have 26%. That will give us 34,684. Right? And then we're going to add 42,000 to it. 42,678, and then that will give us an amount of 77,362. So now to get the third bracket, to check on how 121 was calculated, you're going to do the very same thing, but now in this case you're going to have 77,362, and then you're going to add 31%. 31% of what? Let's go check. 31% of 512,800. 512,800, and then you subtract 370,500. 370,500. Then you're going to get the tax bracket. You're going to get the tax bracket 4. You're going to get the tax bracket 4. That's how you continue like that. Now you have shown how that 77,362 it was calculated. Okay, let's look at another question. Right? So now determine the annual Mr. Mitchell's annual taxable income. Now Mr. Mitchell earns 22,000. He earns an amount of money which is 22,500, and then based on this amount of money he contributes 7.5% towards his pension fund, and the pension fund, it's not subject to tax, meaning it is not taxable. So now to calculate Mr. Mitchell's annual taxable income, going to have annual taxable income. Now the first thing we're going to do, we can say based on this amount of money which is getting, now we want to know, we want to take out that 7.5 which he contribute towards his pension fund, because that is not subject to tax. He contribute it every month. So now let's see. Then we're going to have 22. Before that, we're going to have 22,500 multiplied by 7.5%. So now what are we going to get? Let me move this before that. Then we're going to have, press your calculator, 22,500 multiplied by 7.5%. That is 1,000. It means Mr. Mitchell, he pays 1,687.50 cents every month towards his pension fund. So now let's see the amount of money which it is going to be taxable per month. So amount of money that is taxable, that will be 22,500 subtract, and then we're going to say 22,500 subtract 1,687.50 cents. Then this amount of money, that will be 20,812.50 cents. Now his annual taxable income, that will be an amount of 20,812.50 cents multiplied by 12. That is 12 months. And then we're going to have multiplied by 12. That will give us 249,750. So this is his annual taxable income, the amount of money that SARS will tax him. They will tax based on. So they meaning they're going to charge him tax based on 249,750. That is subject to tax. Okay. Now they say determine the amount of tax Mr. Mitchell will pay per month. Now we want to know the amount of money or the amount of tax that Mr. Mitchell is going to pay per month. Okay, let's take a look. So we now know his annual taxable income. Now we're on 4.1.4. We know his annual taxable income. The annual taxable income will be, that is 249,750. And then let's look at another amount of money that will be not subject to tax, that will not be taxable. The amount of money that will not be taxable, remember the medical aid credit, we also need to subtract it, because we said that it's relieved of a medical aid contributors to reduce their tax payable. And remember, according to the statement, Mr. Mitchell's he has family of 4, meaning there are 4 people that are covered on Mr. Mitchell's medical aid. So therefore, we need to take that into consideration. Okay, let's say the medical aid credit medical aid credit that will be, let's go to the medical aid bracket. He has family of 4. That will be family of 4, and then that means that it's him as the taxpayer, and then that will be 1 dependent. So it means both of them, they're going to pay 278, and then we are left with 2, and then the other one, the 2 is going to pay 246, and also the other one will pay 246. Why did we say 728? Because that will be the taxpayer and 1 dependent. They're paying 728. That will be Mr. Mitchell, and 1 dependent. That will be 72. So that is the medical aid. So we're going to have 728 plus 246 plus 246 again, 46, which gives us how much? Let's see. We have 728 plus 246 plus 246. That gives us an amount of 1,220. That is the monthly, and then the annual medical aid credit that will be the annual, right? Medical aid credit, that will be 1,220. Then you're going to multiply it by 12, and then let's see, then you multiply it by 12. That will be 14,640. 1,640. That is the annual medical aid credit. Okay, so again, we need to take into consideration that we have rebates, which is a relief to tax based on the age. And Mr. Mitchell's he's 45 years old. So it means he fell under the first bracket, which is 17,235. So now we have rebates again. Going to have rebates. That will be 17,235. Those are rebates. So that's what we need to take into consideration when we calculate our tax. So now we need to take note that this and this is the annual. So we're going to use the annual. We're going to use the annual medical aid credit. That's what we need to take into consideration. Okay, let's now start with our calculation. So now we're going to check in which bracket it is 249,750. So we go to our tax bracket. Let me remove this. Okay, we now here on our tax bracket, we now need to check where can we find 249? In which bracket can we get 249? Then it means we're going to get it in this bracket, meaning we're going to use that bracket to calculate our medical, our tax. Sorry, not medical, our tax. So let's see. Then we have tax, annual tax. That will be, you go back to your bracket, that gives us 42,600, that will give us an amount of 42,678 plus the 26%. The 26%, Then you're going to take Mr. Mitchell's amount of money, which is taxable. That will be 249,750, and then we subtract the bracket based on that will be 237,100. That will be 237,100, and then you work on that. Let's see. Okay, we now have 42,678 plus, and then now 249,750 subtract 237,100. Then we have 26% of 12,650. 12,650. Then what we're going to do now, we're going to calculate the 26% of that. 26% multiplied by 12,650. That will give us an amount of 3,042.78 plus 3,289, which gives us an amount of plus 4,2,678. That gives us 45,967. That gives us 45,967. This is what we call annual tax before rebates. That is an annual tax before rebates. And then let's have annual tax after rebates. Annual tax after rebates, that will be equal to, then we have 45,967 subtract, then we're going to subtract the medical aid credit, and we're also going to subtract the rebate. So we're going to subtract 14,640, and then subtract again the rebate, which is going to be 17,235, and then that will give us an amount of what? Okay, now we have our annual tax. That will be what? Let's see. That will be 4,596,7 subtract 14,640 subtract 17,235. Okay, that will give us an amount of 14,092. This is our annual tax. This is the amount of money that Mr. Mitchell must pay to SARS annually. Let's see the monthly. Then we'll have a monthly tax, which is going to be 14,092, and then we divide it by 12. Let's see what we're going to get. Then you divide it by 12. Then you're going to get an amount of 1,174,000, 33 cents. This is the amount of money that Mr. Mitchell